Hello, all. Um, I'm Clive Davies, and over there is my good friend.
Alun, Rees.
All right, Alan, how's it going?
Pleasure seeing you again, Clive.
Yes, always good to catch up. So, this is a new thing we're doing here, um, and it's going to be entitled "The Be Wise Chronicles." I think we're going with that for now.
I mean, it's a working title.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know how often we'll get to do these, but so I'm not gonna set you know, we'll do it wherever time permits.
On a Wednesday sometime.
Oh, it's got to be on a Wednesday. There's no way around that. So this is yet another film, and again, I don't know if it's going to be a podcast or a YouTube video. So we'll see. But this is going to be pure nostalgia all the way, isn't it, Al? I think.
Be Wise, quite well. It's Be Wise was the VHS trash VHS central, basically, growing up.
Yeah. So me and Alan go back a ways, and yeah, probably one of my oldest friends actually who's still about.
I mean, we were friends before, when we had hair, so I mean, it was
Yes.
a while ago.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I think if we wanted an exact date, you have to saw the top of the head off and count the rings, I think is the way it works. But
that's the way it is now. Okay.
and Alan's quite useful because Alan, for anyone who knows him, has a phenomenal, or did have a phenomenal memory. I don't know. It's going slightly by the wayside recently, but
well, yeah, it's age. It's an age thing.
But still, compared to most people, it's. I think you're still batting above average. If that's a sporting metaphor that actually makes any sense. Sporting metaphor is not really being my forte.
Well, it's you were good at a game called Bastard, but that's another podcast as well. So
yes, yeah, that would be that's definitely a podcast that needs doing from the same kind of era. So yeah, so the idea is me and Alan are basically just gonna enjoy waxing nostalgic about some films. I suppose from our youth, but then again, not. I mean, there could be some things that we didn't see back in the day, but relate to it in some way, or it's kind of a work in progress, as we said.
indeed, yes. It's so Be Wise, for people to know, Be Wise was a family.
Who possibly couldn't remember Be Wise, Alan?
Be Wise was like a family value type shop. Bargain basement-y kind of bit of everything, cushions, pots and pans, dodgy VHSs, and Christmas decorations all year round, I think.
Yeah, there were always a lot of Christmas decorations in there. You're quite right.
I mean, they didn't discriminate, so.
No, and Alan and myself were there more for the VHS than the pots and pans and cushions. I think it's. And for those interested, for those in the Carmarthen area who might not remember, and so if I remember correctly, wasn't this located? So as you were approaching where the market used to be, from so you had the I mean it's all
so the market is still there.
Okay.
It's moved slightly. Basically, Be Wise replaced the original Tesco superstore because that moved and it subsequently moved again. But it's on the entrance to the market.
Yes, as you're approaching down the main, or what used to be the main shopping street to the market, right? And
yes.
It was there, am I imagining, was there either on the other side of the road, was it a Halfords?
No, the opposite was Marks and Sparks. Marks and Spencer was opposite, and there was that little Cambrian Way kind of shopping centre there.
Yes, with which had like shops selling cards and crap like that.
It was cards and Mothercare and sports shop.
Yeah, we didn't go down there much. There wasn't much in the way of dodgy VHS down there.
Well, no, there was no dodgy VHSs, and you couldn't pick up any kind of sport vernacular just going into the shop either. So
right. So yeah, so
there was nothing for you.
No. So it'd have been there on the left. Would that have been the last shop before it opened out into the market, or was there one?
It would be last. Yes, because it's now a super drug. Well, I'm saying now. I don't live there myself, so I don't know. But I think it turned into a super drug and maybe something else also.
What was that? Because I have a feeling either right next to it. What was the name of that shop? Athena. Was it Athena? Was that
I think, like a hippie shop.
Well, Athena, if for people who remember, Athena was a shop where people went into, didn't buy anything, but just looked through their posters and then went out again. That's what we used to do in Athena.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, okay.
They had them on like
50 posters to look at and then not buy anything.
Yeah, you'd go in and they'd have, of course, they'd have the girl playing tennis scratching her ass, because everywhere had that. And I don't remember.
Indeed, it was a staple of my youth.
Yeah, and I don't remember any of the other posters they had. I think they might have had some pop star ones, and then for a while they probably would have had Magic Eye one for a while, which you'd stare
Magic
at.
Eyes and then anything from WWE then.
Yeah. So Athena would have been next door, maybe, just to put this in the.
I don't recognize that name, Athena. It might be like a London-based shop where what you're attributing to, but.
You're saying it might have been called something else?
Yeah, like Pound Stretcher or Super Drug or something like that.
Well, it wasn't Pound Stretcher. No, it was like a. Yeah, it was like a.
No, because B-Wise was a Pound Stretcher, so. No, I'm pretty sure it was Super Drug next door for a very long time. Anyway.
Yeah, quite right. Super Drug was there, and their drugs were superb.
I mean, that's all subjective.
True, but they did the trick for me. So anyway, B-Wise was there. I don't know when. I feel as if B-Wise was something that opened in our life. Like we remember, something was there before.
Yes, it was Tesco before, then it became B-Wise. We're looking at 1992. It probably opened.
Oh, was it that late? So I would have been 14, you 13.
Yes, because we would have been going in there getting VHSs, because I don't think I went in. Well, I didn't have any reason to go in there after 1998 or whatever, because I stopped buying tapes then or whatever. So, or films were more accessible then, weren't they? So you didn't need to go into a place of disrepute like that. So
no. There was you didn't have to resist the vices of the Christmas decorations all year round.
Exactly. Yeah. Indeed.
And if I remember correctly, our what we were interested in was on the second floor. Is that right?
Second floor. It was a 2 floors. There was just no lift, so you had to make the stairs. So a lot of the old people didn't go upstairs. So it was a little more youthful up there, I think.
Yeah, I think that's where the youth used to hang out. That's right. Yeah.
The youth, yeah. So there'd be also chocolate up there, which was about to go out of date. So they'd sell it cheaper.
Right. Actually, come to think of it, I don't remember ever seeing anyone else our age. It was just us in our shell suits. Well, you would have been in your shell suit, I remember. I don't know.
I was all about highly flammable sportswear.
And you would have had your curly locks as well in those days.
Well, I would have been gelled up, so I would have been highly flammable.
Yeah, so surprised you're still around, really.
Yeah, I'm looking like a walking fireball.
We used to keep you away from open flames, I remember.
Yes.
So,
but now people use pictures of me now by an open fire just to keep the kids away.
Yeah, you're valuable service you're providing.
Indeed.
So, and if I remember correctly as well, you might be trying to outguess us here and trying to be clever and think that B-Wise was spelt double E, and that the logo of the store was, a bumblebee. But no, you'd be wrong about that. The BY's logo was an owl, wasn't it, if I remember correctly?
Because owls are wisdom.
Yes, and now again, I might be getting confused with something else, so you'll be good at keeping me on track with these things. But was this owl so wise? Didn't he wear like a motorboat, like a professor or something, and he had a gown?
He had glasses, and
another sign of wisdom. That's why I wear them.
Yes, maybe there was. Yes. I think there was a head.
Yeah, so he was a professor owl.
Professor, and his wisdom was letting people buy things cheaper.
Yeah, he'd gone through all of secondary education and got himself all that.
He got his masters, and then to pay off the debts, he had to buy cheap chocolate and sell it for a little bit, pence on the pound, so that he could pay off his overdraft.
And dodgy VHS.
Indeed.
So the one thing, the abiding memory I have is, basically the VHS section would have been...
Sections a bit, I mean, that's a bit of a stretch. I mean, there was
a Cornell video.
I mean, I think it might have changed shapes as well, but it was essentially one shelf and may have sprung into two shelves by the end, but it was essentially just one.
Yeah, well,
section means like we're walking into like an old video rental shop. But
they did have, they had a fair selection of, there was a choice. Let's put it that way.
There was a choice. I'd like to say there was 100 videos up there. There might have been multiples, but yeah, there was a good array.
Well, what I remember is, of course, we found the title "Half a Loaf of Kung Fu" to be hilarious.
Indeed,
endless.
I think that's what caught the eye first.
Yes, and I think they had a few other budget Jackie Chan before he was famous things as well, if I remember correctly. They had the all-time classic Ninja Hunter, which we have covered on another series that we do.
Yes, there was Drunk Master. I think that was a Jackie Chan.
Well, they had Drunken Master, did they?
They had Drunken Master there.
And speaking of multiples, the only thing I remember they had in bulk, for whatever reason, and this was notable because we're talking about dodgy old films, nowhere near new releases, except the odd
Adam's Family. They had
Adam's
Family just coming out of their eyeballs, and Adam's Family Values.
All right, those two, yes, I forgot about those two, but I think they were a little bit later on, because I think the one that jumped out at us was, why have they got this? Because it had barely left theatres. Was a film which I've still not seen to this day, so we might actually do it just because it was so prominent. Was Mr. Saturday Night, starring Billy Crystal.
There was Mr. Saturday Night, and there was also Mr. De Niro and Mr. Show. There was the Robert De Niro one as well.
Oh, I remember what that was. But they definitely had Mr. Saturday Night up the kazoo, I remember.
Yes.
Wazoo even. Kazoo is a musical instrument.
I mean, it would have been a noisy up to something.
Yeah. You cram some Mr. Saturday Night into any orifice and you're getting noises.
Indeed.
So I remember that. Have you ever seen Mr. Saturday Night?
I mean, I potentially was going to because of that, but it was one of those things. I was always expecting it to come on TV, and being it was a relatively new title, that was like $8.99, so we wouldn't touch that with a barge pole. There was others that was cheaper.
Yeah, basically we're talking about a $5, right?
Yes, that was the essential. Yeah, or they did deals as a 3 for $10 or whatever it was.
Yes,
the cheap one.
Yes, and I remember one one of your birthdays, I think you asked your parents to buy you, what was it, 5 tapes from PY or something like that?
Basically, my mother goes, "What do you want?" And being the purveyor of a bargain, she knew that was going to be A, cheaper, and B, keep me satisfied. So, yeah, so that's what happened.
And I think, right, so one might have been A Breed Apart with Rutger Hauer. Was that one of your selections?
I can't remember in order, exact order when I had them. The Breed Apart was a B-Wise purchase. American Eagle.
Yeah, I remember American Eagle.
Skeleton Coast.
Skeleton Coast.
Ernest Borgnine.
Was there something like Eye of the Hawk or something like that? Or something that sounded a bit like that?
No, it was American Eagle, but there was a hawk on the cover.
Ah, right.
And then he was in the eye of the hawk on the cover.
POW The Escape wasn't a B-Wise release, was it? I don't think.
No, I think maybe No Retreat, No Surrender might have been. No Retreat, No Surrender 2, not the first one.
Right.
The one where they're attacking the camp.
Which I saw not that long ago, actually, and is quite a fun film, No Retreat, No Surrender 2.
I need to go back because...
Well, here's your opportunity, Alun. The B-Wise Chronicles allows you this.
Indeed. So that will be in a future fun-filled episode.
Yes. I mean, if it's as fun as this, then it'll be... Woof. We should probably start charging.
King of Comedy. That's what the De Niro one was.
That's interesting.
All the time. Yeah.
That's interesting because if your timing is right, and it probably is, if you're talking me about 13, 14, then King of Comedy probably would have been something I'd have wanted to see, but I don't remember buying it from B-Wise.
No, because it was there, and it was all down to the covers as well, because I think some of the covers were like photocopied, so they weren't genuine. So that's, obviously why they were so cheap as well.
Right.
I remember getting a copy of Stunt Wars, which that was one of my mother's purchases, not mine, because she thought it would be cool, but it was one of those crappy 1972 two cars going bang into each other, and that was a stunt.
Stunt Wars. Hang on now. Stunt Wars. Was that... Now you're digging up, because I think I remember this. Was it like more or less? Was it one of those like
compilation things?
Yeah, with a narrator. Hi, I'm Casey Habernack, and welcome to the world of stunts. Or
exactly. But basically his voice was probably the most enthusiastic thing of the whole. I think I made it through about 3/4. I remember once I own it. I better watch it. And I got to about 3/4, and some films are so bad they're good. This was just, it needed to get burnt.
But it was basically a documentary, a footage.
I think they were trying to make it into vaguely remember they were trying to make a compilation video, but also having like a story which interjected a lot of the moves. So it was docudrama fantasy ish. Wasn't it? Again,
that's making it sound memorable, but yeah, that's making it sound more interesting to me now. See,
well, I remember, even though I was 15, watching it, and yeah, the interest waned pretty quick when I was watching it. Anyway,
hang on now. I'm just looking up, because I have a second book on the way out soon, and it's at the publishers, but I have the manuscript here, and I'm just looking. Stunt Wars might be in here now, and it leads me to Stunt Wars. Right, here we go. I've got it, and this might be a different film, but I have it as something called Mac 78. Which...
No, I've got it. Yeah, I've just Googled it myself.
All right, okay.
The camera will work backwards.
Is that the cover you remember?
Yes.
Oh, okay, right. Because the thing I'm thinking of is AKA Stunt Wars USA versus Japan. Was there a Japan versus America theme to that Stunt Wars?
I'm trying to see if there's a synopsis on this or not.
Because what you're telling me sounds a lot like this film, which I watched and reviewed not that long ago, and a lot of real stunts. But yeah, they added like a kind of story to it, that being this competition between an American and a Japanese stunt driver, and there's a bit of a romance.
It might have been. Actually, that rings a bell. Yeah, that might. That's what the common thread of the going through it. Then that might work actually.
Ah, well, that's interesting then. So obviously you were holding out on me, Alun, back in the day, because I don't think I ever saw this film until very recently.
Well, and I remember
we would have shared. See, I'm wondering if it's not something else, because I recall something.
Yes, it's in the USA versus Japan in a series of death-defying, crazy car stunts. I'm reading the back of it now. It is that.
Oh, okay. Because I'm sure I had something similar, but it was more like, yeah, it was more like straight out something you would have had off television, like with monster trucks and stuff like that. Alun has just sent me a link to this priceless item. Is that the cover you had?
The link. That's the one I had, Clive. And then it says other titles you might be interested in. And it looks like they've taken the BY's shelf and just put all of them there. It's like First Blood, Lethal Weapon, No Retreat, No Surrender. They've got it all there.
Obviously, we should send a link to our show to the good people at Golden Class Films, because clearly we're speaking their language.
Well, allegedly, it's they're catching what we're throwing.
Right, I'm thinking of something else then. I must have had some other tape, because I don't recognize that cover either. I must have had some other tape that was something a bit more conventional, just like, yeah, monster trucks and a monster truck rally. And because I think the other thing that people forget about is, and not, yeah, it's a few years before this as well, was this kind of stuff. Like, do you remember the Havoc series? Which was just car crashes. It was just like compilations of car crashes from rallies and things like that.
Yeah, and it's the kind of thing they put into on a screen in a pub in the 90s, just for cannon fodder in the background, because you'd be able to watch car crash without having need of listening to it or having any commentary and all that jazz.
Yeah, I don't know to what extent they will, because Sal's videos in Fandelo had some Havocs, I remember, but they didn't seem like, I don't know if they were proper, like, legit releases, or if it was just someone with a couple of video recorders had edited together their personal collection of rally car crashes.
I mean, maybe years ago it was so easy to make your own videos, wasn't it? Really, if you had two recorders, it was just splice them together and rent it out as your own then. So
yeah, I'll have to look into the Havoc story to see. They might have been legit. Oh, in fact, there's a bunch of them on YouTube and such now.
Well, the reason I kind of stopped halfway through that Star Wars, that Stunt Wars one, was it was basically the production value. So I don't know where it came out. It says 82, but did it say 82 on it? Or was it something else I was looking at? But regardless, it's it's one of the production value. I think when we were doing bunny hops on our bike, we'd have had a better production value rather than the stunts they were doing.
Right. Well, I think memory might have, you might be being slightly unfair to Stunt Wars, but it's, what I mean is, watching it just recently, it's a bit of a time capsule now, I think, which in fact, I think we should almost definitely do Stunt Wars now in a future episode.
Well, we talk so much about it now, it's going to have to be the second one.
Yeah. Make you sit through it this time. There we go.
Yeah.
We've got the next one lined up. Yeah, so speaking of which, the idea is that we choose a film each, and Alun decided to kick us off with one of his. I mean, it won't always be a B-Wise video, but B-Wise is that's our starting point, right? And it's already
our yardstick.
Yeah, we're bearing fruit on it. We've already got our second episode lined up, and just neither of us chose it. It naturally, organically formed.
Yes, like an old spot with just bad pus. That's what's going to come. That's what I think is going to be.
Yeah, that's what I mean for with this show, is something as delightful as that. But that'll be next time, maybe, then, if we can score ourselves a copy of Stunt Wars. Right, this is a good point to jump off and jump back on then, and then I'll introduce Zombie Aftermath. All right?
Yeah.
So I stop the recording and then jump off. You're going to have to jump back on again. So for this first inaugural episode then, Alun, what did you choose to kick us off with?
It was the classic Zombie Aftermath by Steve Beckett.
Right.
Written by Steve Beckett, directed by Steve Beckett, edited by Steve Beckett. Probably supplied the catering. I think his sister was the sound, and I think she was the makeup also. So
you would choose to pronounce his second name Beckett, would you?
Yes. How would you?
Well, I would have said Beckett.
Maybe I just didn't read it properly.
Oh, fair enough then. As long as you've got a good reason.
So, but I was just reading it, and when I read it, I might have just skimmed through and thought it was like Dr. Sam Beckett, you know?
Ah, right, of Quantum Leap fame.
Indeed. That's another fucking flashback.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know, that's a TV thing, so it's slightly outside of our remit. However, if they did do one of those, and actually they did it a lot here, so that I might be able to find it, when they crammed, like, if it was a 2-part episode, for example, and they'd cram it together and make a fake feature, like it would have been Quantum Leap, the hope for future or something like that.
Well, I'm sure there'll be shit like that going around now, because there's just been a reboot as well. So
was there?
Yeah, it's been released here now. I think it's on its 6th episode.
Who's in it? Anyone we know?
No one's crossed over.
Oh, okay. Have you actually seen?
I saw a statement from Scott Bakula. And then he's distanced himself from it. So I think everyone's expecting it to be a bit of a car crash.
You have yet to see an episode yourself?
Yes, I've watched a couple just out of curiosity more than anything. The first one was Dire.
Right.
And yeah, the second and third, I could see where the plot is kind of trying to go, but I mean, the production value isn't the best.
Which network is that on then?
It's on NBC, actually. It's got a good backing behind it.
And there's no one you recognise? I'm wondering who they would have got for instance, the Dean Stockwell character.
No, so they referenced Dean Stockwell because
he died not that long ago, isn't it?
Yeah, he died, and so his daughter is in it.
Oh, I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah. It's anyway, less said the better about that.
You don't sound too enthusiastic. You don't sound like you'll be rushing out to watch all the
No. I mean, it obviously I've got kind of melancholy nostalgia with the actual show because I enjoyed the show when I was growing up, but this one doesn't have that charm. It has, the first one had a charm. This one just feels like, oh, we can't think of anything else. Let's just reboot something.
Right. So yes, so Zombie Aftermath. Now, if some of you are blanking on the title, that's because it was exclusively Zombie Aftermath in the UK, right? Because, well, number one, there's no zombies in it.
Well, I mean, there's people with bad masks in it.
Yeah, but those are mutants, I think, aren't they? I think Mutant Aftermath would have been a more appropriate retitling.
Nimble Mutant Aftermath, because every zombie show, film reference I've ever come across, they're supposed to be like slow creepers.
Well,
these were like
years,
jumping over walls.
Yes, that's
jumping
true.
over walls and all that.
Yeah, but yes, I think they're mutants as opposed to zombies. But I remember the painted cover of the copy we would have had from B-Wise. Now, here's one then. Zombie Aftermath. I don't think either you or me had Zombie Aftermath. I think...
Yes, I had a copy.
Oh, you did? Because I'm pretty sure Joe White had a copy of Zombie Aftermath.
No, I had a copy, and I'm pretty sure if I go back to my parents' house, I'll probably find it.
Oh, it's good. You are quite different. No, I have Zombie Aftermath.
Yes.
You want to make
I had... My thing was buying videos growing up, and I got rid of a lot when I moved between houses, etc. But there are a select core which I kept. Zombie Aftermath is one. A Man Called Rainbow is another.
Oh well, yes, you've got to have a Man Called Rainbow. There's episode number 3.
Indeed, yeah.
That would have definitely been not only a B-Wise purchase, but I think something that didn't exist anywhere in the world outside of B-Wise. I think a Man Called Rainbow.
No. It was a great little find that was. I think you actually found it somehow.
I think
you saw it, and then you knew of it because was it televised? No, it wouldn't have been televised.
No. I definitely had a copy of it.
There we go then.
Yeah.
What would have made you buy that? Did you know of it, or did you just read the back?
I think that would have been a complete surprise. I never would have heard of that. I think it was just, what the fucking hell is this?
And because it was a film Rebel, overdubbed by other actors with a completely different dialogue and storyline then.
Yeah. Making fun of Sylvester Stallone.
Indeed.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that. There we go. This is right in itself, Alun. We already got episode 2 and 3 lined up. This is brilliant.
There we go.
So Zombie Aftermath, yes, would have been known as Zombie Aftermath in the UK only. The original title is, of course, The Aftermath. And you can now view it, as I'm sure we both did, on YouTube in quite a nice print.
It was a nice little surprise, actually. I was expecting it to be a bit grainy like some of them, but no, it held up all right.
Yeah. Well, I think it's probably
very pleased with it.
I think it probably looks a hell of a lot better than the print we would have watched on the old VHS, I think.
Yes, indeed, yes. That probably elevated the production level just seeing it in HD.
Yeah, no, it looks all right, and we'll talk about that a bit, I think, because this is, you couldn't make fun of this film, but as we would have done as snotty teenagers, but considering its production values, how much money they had and everything, they did a pretty good job in some respects. I don't think it's to be sneered at necessarily.
I mean, even though it looked, as you said, we touched on it, we made fun of it as kids, going on about some of the background was moving because it was a cardboard background, etc., or it was obviously models that they were blowing up, etc. But in saying that, we've both worked in TV now, and we both know how how expensive even that cheap shit was
absolutely.
to make.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is it's a 1982 release, but apparently a lot of this was shot back in 1977, 1978. And Barkett...
The clothing would support that, actually.
Yeah, Beckett, let's call the whole thing off, was not best pleased with the end. So I think he added, I'm not exactly sure, I'm guessing maybe a lot of the effects stuff maybe was added. But anyway,
right.
What happens? What's the basic plot rundown, Alan? What happens in Zombie Aftermath? What's the story?
So basically, we open up and we're in a spacecraft, astronaut. Well, basically, we see 3 astronauts.
Yes, in the Nautilus, right? That's there.
In the Nautilus, yeah. Yes. And yeah, it's them trying to get back to Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't have any contact. And obviously, the ground crews or whatever, it's important to be able to land. And they don't have any kind of... There's no contact. They're all blind. And yeah, little do they know what's happened to Earth.
Yeah, Major Tom's on, but ground controls off.
Indeed, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so they're forced to ditch in the sea, right?
Yeah, they ditch in the sea, and again, production value. There's only one piece of wreckage, which looked like an old coffee table.
Mm.
So, and it feels like basically the opening of Big Sur or something then, because the amount of footage of him just in the sea trying to climb out of this ravine, etc. But yeah, basically it was
it slows down.
That was funny. It's a struggle.
Yeah, it slows down a bit at this point, doesn't it? But the whole thing is like, it's not a very long film anyway. So even when it goes into its lulls, it's even though some films that are very short manage to seem 4 or 5 hours long. I don't think this film suffers from that overall. Like you said, there's a few bits like that where it suddenly slows down a bit, but overall it shifts gear, this film, pretty quickly, right? It's
well, it also helps that Steve Beckett, he feels the need, instead of being a character-driven film, he just narrates it. So instead of actually seeing what's lived, he actually goes, "Oh, this is going to take too long, and I'll just tell people what I'm thinking and where I'm going and what's happened in like a 30-minute monologue."
He is also
30-second monologue.
He is also guilty of actually using the line of dialogue, "I was in the middle of a nightmare with no way to wake up," is one thing that he says. Because he comes, it slowly dawns on him that things haven't gone well in his absence. Let's put it that way.
Well, yeah. The first mutant he comes across is just basically a family on the beach who just looked like they didn't put any kind of sun cream on and were there during a nuclear holocaust.
Again, I will jump to this film's defense. I would say the makeup is good enough. It's,
I mean, it did what it needed to do.
Yeah. And, you mentioned the old coffee table in the sea. I would put it to you, sir, that were you to throw a brand new coffee table into the sea, it would pretty much look the same as an old one.
Well, I've never been on a spaceship, so I don't know how many coffee tables there are on it, be them new or used.
Right. Well, like you said, it's not our area of expertise, so we'll leave that.
Exactly. We're not astronauts.
No, believe it or not. Yeah, I can relate to this as well. I can relate to the going off to space and then coming back and the I fuck off to Japan for a bit and Brexit happens, stuff like that. It's basically the same story. I come back.
Well, it's the same as going from, you could be going from Llangadog, you could go to Cardiff and then go back. Same thing.
Yeah, I remember coming back to the streets of Carmarthen where BY's once was and walking around and everything shuttered up. And I thought, fuck, it's zombie aftermath. It's
exactly, yes. And the state of the people walking around, it felt like we were extras to that.
Yeah. So so what's happened? It has been some sort of nuclear apocalypse. There's been a war, right? Forrest J. Ackerman turns up he has a cameo, and he kind of basically explains what's happened, right? He's the curator of the museum, right?
Yes, the museum, but before that, they go to an old radio station.
Yeah, like a radar station or something like that, doesn't it? Oh, yeah, so mention, at first he thinks he's all alone, but there's another survivor. Larry Latham plays the other guy. Was his name Matthews? Newman and Matthews, right?
Matthews, who it seems like the worst sidekick ever.
So
because he was there and he wouldn't help, but he was the injured one needing help.
Well, the interesting thing that I noticed was an interesting thing that they layered on, which I didn't expect, was even though Steve Barkett's character is much, like you said, is much more resourceful and useful and gets shit done. He's the supposed a misanthrope, right? Like the other guy, Larry Latham, has this whole section where he explains because he lost his wife or something in an accident or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, like, look, I know for you, coming back to Earth and there's no one here and everyone's dead, that's great. But for me, I'm kind of really upset. And the other character just kind of says, yes, well, our Steve Barkett kind of fesses up, to be honest, I'm having a grand old time. No one left. Which I thought was kind of an interesting way to go with the character.
I mean, yes, and for someone to show that lack of empathy, and then supposedly after they go to the museum and they meet the child, he, within 10 minutes of going around the museum, says, whatever happens to you, sir, I will look after the child. So going from, I don't give a shit about anybody, to, I'm going to look after this little kid for the rest of his life.
So the child was the curator's child, right?
I don't even think it was a curator's child. I think it was just someone who found someone.
Because did we see him early on? So the other threat, as well as mutants, and they don't mention radiation. Radiation doesn't seem to be a problem anymore. Maybe it's gone a long time ago.
It does go when it starts to rain. It goes off because the guy's got a Geiger counter.
Right, there we go. But it doesn't seem like something they're overly concerned with, right?
No. You can still eat. It's no Chernobyl, but people can still survive.
And so as well as the mutants and basically everything, blown to fuck. The other problem is there's this gang led by Sid Haig, who seems to be enjoying himself as Cutter, right? And
he did enjoy himself. I mean, of bad production values, I've seen. I mean, it's up there for assault scenes. I mean, they kind of did it in a very good stroke bad way. It's a good way of making you feel bad, basically.
Yeah, I mean, so he runs this gang of slavers, basically, who they round up all the survivors, kill all the men, and keep the women for themselves. And I think early on when we first see this, don't we see that little kid who is actually Steve Barkett's son as well, Christopher Barkett? Don't we see that little kid at the beginning?
No, that kid.
All the men. Quite gorily, has to be said. There's a few exploding heads there, right, with shotguns.
I mean, it was, again, very much so. But I thought the kid was with the curator. I mean, I literally just finished it, but some things have glossed my memory, but
no, you're quite
yeah,
right.
I thought
We're
we were just
introduced
in the museum.
yeah, we're
Yeah.
introduced as but thinking back, I'm sure he's because our main the the female protagonist as well. I'm pretty sure she's in that group at the beginning, and at some point in the film they've both escaped, but we're not privy to that. I think the main girl, as played by Lynn Margulies, and Christopher Paquette, they've both escaped, but we don't see that happen. I think is the way I remember.
True. Yeah. I think or they jump on one of the jeeps, etc. Let me remember, because she was attacked. Then she stabs him with a bottle, and then he rolls off, and she runs out. And
but that was later.
Yeah, no, It cuts to them. It cuts to them. Then next scene. Yeah.
Well, anyway, it doesn't really matter. But so yeah, basically all this is going on. There's mutants. There's the Cutter Gang, and then you've got Steve Bucket, and his mate dies. So they form this kind of little family unit, right? Steve Bucket, Lynn Margulies, and the little boy Christopher Bucket, and yeah, they have to. Well, eventually they have to fight back against Sid Haig's Cutter, right, and bring him down.
Indeed, yeah, because in all this, everything is burnt. There's been a nuclear war, but they managed to find this beautiful, ostentatious house where they move in and booby trap it to try and protect themselves. And it's the most viewed house probably in the area. And the Cutter Gang, for some reason, haven't used that as their base.
Yeah, I think this house as well might be. So, like you said, most of it is shot around Los Angeles, Zuma Beach, places like that. But I think this place might be in Nevada. I think this is Las Vegas, as owned by Ted V. Mickles, who I think was a co-producer, or was one of the original producers or something, but ended up not being that involved in it. But I think that's his famous, what he used to refer to as his castle in Las Vegas, I think. Those scenes were shot.
Right. Interesting. But before we move on from the museum, I did like the idea when they were going through the museum and all the different exhibits and aspects, the kind of everyone they stopped at was an extinct civilization, which I thought was quite clever.
Yes, it was quite clever at first, but then they started banging you over the head a bit with it, right?
Yeah, there were subtle nuances, and then all of a sudden, then just in case you didn't get it, you're like, exactly. Look, see, because everyone's dead.
Yes, and they used to be great. You see, yeah, it was. Can you get it at the back there? Like, yes, but no, but it was, they attempted to give it a bit of, and the whole film as well is, I think, I mean, now, like you said, with the benefit of not being a snotty teenager anymore, I think the miniature work and stuff like that, and the background mats and things like that, are quite good. They look quite evocative. They look, they set the scene quite nicely. I mean, they're not necessarily like photorealistic, but I don't need photorealistic. They've got more atmosphere and they have more character than modern CGI, for example.
Yeah, no, again, it's one of those things where we can mock it, but being in that environment, or when you've had to work with props, etc., you realize then how expensive they are, how hard it is to actually make something look genuine on a camera. But I mean, they did a solid job.
Yeah, I mean, John W. Morgan's score as well is a very kind of old school, bombastic kind of score from a much bigger budgeted film, and that kind of lends it a little bit of.
Yeah, it gives that little kind of that atmosphere of menace kind of thing. It's very kind of foreboding music as well. You know what's going to come, but obviously with everything, he references his past wife and his past son, and you're like, oh, hang on, is lightning strike twice and all that jazz.
Right. Should mention as well that Lynn Margulies, who demonstrates that there are no bras in a post-apocalyptic world.
Well, I didn't realize that a nuclear weapon targets certain materials.
Yes, no, this was an anti-bra device, I think, was unleashed.
I mean, no, there were no bras in the post-apocalyptic kind of wardrobe.
No,
is the thing.
It's accurate. It's authentic, is what it is.
I mean, and a post-apocalyptic kind of thing is very cold.
Yeah, well, yes, exactly. All those nuclear winds. So, yeah, thank God the film's not in 3D. I'd have poked your eyes out. But
but talking about forget the lack of bras on the screen. Where the hell did this guy get his safari suit from? Because he goes from astronaut wear to look at me, I'm fighting in the Serengeti.
Maybe he had it on board the ship in case they discovered elephants on Mars or whatever the fuck they were.
Well, I mean, he looked like Chris Brasher, not Chris, but yeah, Chris Brasher or Bear Grylls there.
So Lynn Margulies was actually Andy Kaufman's last girlfriend, right?
Okay. I know of Andy Kaufman, but I don't know enough about him.
Okay. Well, if you ever saw the film about him, Man in the Moon, starring Jim Carrey, his kind of longtime girlfriend, as played by Courtney Love in that film, is Lynn Margulies. That's who she's playing. She's also Johnny Legend's sister in real life. So it's kind of interesting. That's certainly something I wouldn't have put together back in the day when we saw this film. Again, I probably wouldn't have known who Andy Kaufman was then.
Yes, indeed. But also with that, it shows a level then that she was, how can I phrase it? She was in circles of people in the industry, entertainment, whatever. So even it's a bad film, they're not bad actors. It's just the circumstance they're in, probably.
Yeah, I mean, well, she did co-direct as well. There's that documentary, I'm From Hollywood, which was kind of a document of when Andy Kaufman turned kind of pro wrestler for a while, like a bad guy wrestler.
Okay.
Also, so we mentioned the effects. So Jim Danforth, who was certainly involved with the effects, he's in it somewhere. Also that, so I recognize the voice of Dick Miller because it's a very recognizable voice when he listens to that's when we get the exposition about what happened, right? Actually, I was wrong. It wasn't the curator. When he listens to it on the reel-to-reel tape.
Yes.
But it's the voice of Dick Miller, and I suppose the voice is supposed to belong to the dead body sprawled out on the table. What I didn't realize, the dead body sprawled out on the table was Eric Kydden. I don't know how you pronounce his name, but he was famous he was the guy who launched a very famous shop called the Hollywood Book and Poster.
Okay.
So he's the guy who founded Hollywood Book and Poster. So he was quite the well-known character in kind of film enthusiast circle, much like Forrest Ackerman who plays the curator, right? Where kind of who, of course, famously edited Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine. So they're kind of early.
They're basically film buffs who came together to make a film.
Yeah, I think that now they're 10 a penny and they make stupid YouTube videos like this. But back in the day, that fandom was a bit more rare, was a bit more few and far between, right? So people would have connected over that because it would have been rarer, I suppose, to come across someone who was interested in these things, right? So I guess this film does have that element of fans turned professional, I suppose.
Yes. I mean, and fans having a go and maybe not fully succeeding, but it shows that if you don't try, you won't succeed either. So
yeah, and and they're ambitious. I mean, there's a few laser gun battles as well, which are fun, and like I said, the gore is not bad, and there's a knife in an eyeball, and it's.
I mean, you look at it; it's got sci-fi because it's in space. It's got mutants. It's got again lasers. It's got gang warfare. It's got sex. It's got gore. I mean, he tried many genres in one film. In fairness to him,
yeah.
So I don't know if that was from the start or maybe in post as well, thinking he needed to jazz it up a bit with
right
the effects, etc. And
yeah, I think that was the case, and I think he played it. I mean, I don't know. Maybe we'll disagree on this. I don't know, but overall, I thought coming back to this after however many, 30 years or something, I was actually quite impressed by The Aftermath. I think it's a much better film for what it is than we unfairly made fun of it for back in the day. I'd say for what it is, there's much worse. There's much more to the point. The cardinal sin is there's much more boring films out there than The Aftermath. And that includes big budget Hollywood films as well.
Yeah, this film, it tried a few strikes and got a few of them, and failed on a few. But then again, as you said, there's some drivel coming out of the cinemas now, and then you can go in and go, "What the fuck did I watch?" Just watch.
Another fine sporting metaphor there.
Yeah,
which, as you know, I excel at.
Exactly. Yeah. See, I mean, you're learning it.
Yeah, I'm picking it up.
Yeah.
So it sounds as if you actually had a pretty favourable time with The Aftermath as well. I mean, did you find it boring or?
No, it wasn't boring. I remembered it differently. I didn't realize he was such a have-a-go. I didn't remember him being such a have-a-go hero as much as he was. I thought I remembered it more as coming across a few survivors and trying to run away from mutants. But then again, as we just saw, that only happened for like 30 seconds of the film. So
yeah, no, I remembered it differently as well. Like I certainly remembered it being a lot less looking like a proper film than that actually does. I kind of remembered it unfairly.
But yes, and it had more layers than just the one that we thought it was.
Yeah, I mean, granted, sometimes a little bit corny. Maybe I don't think it would be wrong to say that it does go into the corn here and there, but no more than dozens of other films. It's I think the main thing about it for me was it was nowhere near as laughable as I think we thought it was back in the day. There was actually quite a little film.
No, because if this came out now, it probably wouldn't get a cinema releasing just because the attempted rape scenes or whatever, they're pretty full on. I think there'd be a lot of question marks over that now.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I will defer to your better judgment, to your judgment there, because I kind of live in a world of dodgy films 24 hours a day. So I don't know what's normal and what isn't. So
No, but it's typical. It's typical kind of assault from like the 70s and 80s films. But these days, I think they gloss over it a bit more.
Oh, no, certainly. I think you're quite right in terms of a major release that wasn't specifically aimed at people wanting something grungy. yes, nowadays in a major release, for instance, if they were even to have a kind of throwaway rape scene, semi for titillation and semi for setting up the characters' kind of revenge motives, it would be a fully clothed rape scene, or
yes.
Right.
And it would have been, especially this day and age now, when you need a intimacy coordinator on sets, etc., where that's a thing now.
Right. Rather than Sid, go over there, rip her top off.
Yeah, basically.
Will do. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're paying me to do this as well, right?
No, don't tell her what's going to happen. It'll be more surprising. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a bit like that story in Kramer versus Kramer, where the director goes up to Dustin Hoffman and goes, slap her, but slap her for real. And Meryl Streep didn't expect it, and whoosh. I mean, you get a proper oh my god reaction where I'm sure the actress doing this was like, holy shit, Jeff, you're not supposed to do it like that.
I tell you, when I was in New York and I spotted Meryl Streep on the street and I went up and slapped her, she didn't get the reference. She didn't get the reference, and the police came and it was a fucking mess. And I was just trying to express, my love.
Hey, Mary, I love your film.
Yeah, get a proper name. Actually, Meryl sounds a bit Welsh.
Oh, I know a couple of Meryls.
Yeah. Well, we all do,
Yeah. Slap every one of them, I do.
Right. So on that, on that note, I think
on that note,
I think we should call this episode to a close before you endorse any more domestic violence.
I'm going to go outside now and find some Meryls.
So you have been watching me, Clive Davies, and him,
Alun Rees.
And this has been your first episode of the Be Wise Chronicles. And I suggest you be wise.
Be wise.
And
tune in next time.
Yes, there we go. Perfect. Adios.